Reached out to me and I reached back, and this is something that we need, and I would like to introduce you to a very special person. This is an author. Her name is Ramona Thomas. How are you doing, Ramona?
I'm great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Joe.
Thank you. All right, so tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a Bay Area native, born and raised. Basically lived in Richmond, California until I became an adult. Lived in Hayward, California for about 20 years and recently moved to the North Bay.
Okay, so how long have you been an author? How long?
I wrote my first book in 2011. It was entitled Grandma's Brown Cookies. Because of the title being Grandma's Brown Cookies, oftentimes with the algorithms, it would be located with cookbooks. So eventually I changed the name of the book to match one of the main characters, who is Dr. Wiz Magic. So currently the book is entitled Dr. Wiz Magic's Potion.
Okay, so where can we find this book?
You can find my books at amazon.com /author/it's lit literacy, no spaces, or I Shade by the Bay, which is a Black-owned bookstore online, and she carries all of my books as well.
Okay, so is there any particular writer or author that inspired you to write?
Gosh, I would say Maya Angelou. When I read, I think I was maybe 13 or 14 when I read I Know What Wyatt Cageberg Sings. That stayed with me. But I've read so many other authors. Yeah, it's kind of hard to pinpoint one, but I would say that her book was very inspirational to me. Although I write children's books, so I'm in a totally different genre.
Okay, so what is your motivation when you get inspired to write these books?
Okay, well, when the inspiration for Grandma's Cookies, which eventually became Dr. Wiz Magic's Potion, I was inspired because a lot of things that are naturally organic are brown, right? And a lot of times the word brown comes with a negative connotation as opposed to a positive connotation. So I wanted to write a book where I felt everybody could relate to, and we all relate to food basically. So in this particular story, when he goes to see the wacky doctor and she creates her own potion, she uses colors that create the color brown, and then that potion is administered to him, and he can hear the food in the grocery store speak to him. And so ultimately throughout the story, he and his mother are checking the nutrition label. I thought that was very important for us too, because so many of our young people today and foods are more processed now than they were in the past. So I think it's very important for people to look at the nutrition label and really know how to read it so you can understand what you're getting. And so I also believe that when you are learning, it's best to learn something as soon as possible. So that's why I write children's books, because I think early education is important, and I hope that the lessons that are shared through my stories resonate and stay with the readers.
Okay, so how many children's books have you wrote, and could you just tell us about some of the books? What's your favorite book that you've written so far?
Well, I think my favorite now, every one that I've written is my favorite at the time, but my favorite now, I've just started a new series. It's called Eliana's Short Vowel Adventures, and I have out Eliana Short E and Eliana Short I. Eliana is inspired by my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter who will be 3 soon, and so she'll be starting school soon. And it's really to teach children that our vowel system has long vowels and short vowels, right? So throughout that story, the first one, they're pronouncing her name wrong because her name is with a short vowel and everyone pronounces it with a long vowel. So she finds her voice to share with everyone how to pronounce her name correctly. But then later she starts hearing and seeing words inside other words. She learns that For instance, a word like Israel, which was one of her classmates, if you were breaking that word apart, there's is and then there's real. And so she's able to identify that words are embedded or hidden in other words. So it's a great way for young people to learn.
Do you think that's important? Because, especially with us, we like to create our own language,
And that's why I wrote the Code Switch. So the Code Switch is actually about two girls who are very smart. Both of them are very smart, and they end up competing for valedictorian, and they're best friends. One speaks more colloquially, and one speaks more formal English. And so it's about who's going to win. That book also has a food component because they are preparing for a school dance, and there's this whole debate about whether they're going to change the snacks that they normally have. Are they going to go with healthier food snacks or stick with the normal junk food that they have? But that book I co-authored with Yvetta Franklin, and the purpose of that book was to basically, from my point of view, was to let people know that if you are creating your own language like we do, that ends up being adopted by the whole world, that you should be proud of that and own it, not let anyone ridicule you for how you speak or any words that you choose to use. And I'll share with you, when I do school visits, oftentimes I'm visiting classrooms, and I would say to some of the kids, like, okay, what does cool mean? The original definition of cool has to do with temperature, right?
Yes.
We take current words and we might give it a whole new meaning. So if we say something is really cool, that doesn't mean that it's cool in temperature, right?
Yes.
And so if somebody says, oh yeah, something's blingy, I totally give the bling bling credit to Lil Wayne when he came out with the bling bling song, right? All of a sudden everybody was saying, oh, such and such has a lot of bling. We weren't using that prior to, at least in my estimation, prior to Lil Wayne coming out with that song. So yes, I totally feel you with that question, and that is why the Code Switch was written.
Yeah, I like that, because one thing about me, I've been trying to do a better job of being able to fit in both realms, as well as I can do the Ebonics and the hood stuff. I wanted to dive into this realm because that's why I felt it was important to interview a woman of your caliber, because I feel like this is something that I needed for myself. So I appreciate you reaching out to me, because I feel this is much needed with me so I can get better as a person.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I feel like everybody needs to know how to switch. That's the bottom line. Because you are going to be in different environments, and sometimes you wouldn't want to have a job interview and say to the person who's interviewing you, what's up? You probably want to say, how are you? So that's where I was going with it.
Yeah, I understand completely. Do you feel like that's something that we as a community need to teach, more to youth? Because
yeah, but the thing is, what I also feel like we don't need, unfortunately, because of social media, when we do have our own, our own lingo, our own language, back in the day, it literally might take 20 years for somebody to figure out what was going on. And that was almost immediate, so I don't like that. Like, for instance, if you said something to me and I said bet, you and I would know what that means, right? But now the whole world pretty much knows. And so that part I'm not, I feel like we almost give away that creativity with our language, and then we don't get credit for the creativity that we're using. How we're taking existing words and we're giving them a whole new spin. So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I noticed that too, because there is this thing where I've seen over the years, me being 51 going on 52, I see that we create and innovate and rearrange a lot of different things, but the problem is I see other people profiting off of it except us. And I want to ask you, I want to dive deep into that. I want to ask you, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like, unfortunately, I don't know, maybe we should be copywriting more things, or, learning about copyright laws and things like that, because
Thank you.
I see, and I don't really know all the rules about copywriting, so I don't know if I see some of our language being used to sell T-shirts and various other things, little slogans or whatever, and I feel like, dang, what? Like, they should have patented that so that it wouldn't be available to just anyone.
Yeah, I'm one of them type of guys that understand completely that sometimes you shouldn't, say it out loud. Sometimes you do need to check into trademarking, patented things, because like I said before, me myself, I'm just kind of tired of seeing other people becoming multimillionaires or billionaires off of our creations. And I really feel this is the time that where we need to start recycling and putting back the black dollars into the black community, because people are making money off of us and then they're not spreading the wealth or sharing the wealth with us.
And you just mean bringing that up, I actually live in the North Bay, right? And I drive all the way down here to come to the World of Braids because this is a black-owned business. I enjoy doing business with Anna. She's great with what she does with her craft. And also, as I mentioned earlier, my books are available through Shade by the Bay at shadebythebay.com. And Deborah Day, who's the owner of that bookstore, she's been in the business for a long time, and she really reps a lot of black authors. And she sells primarily to school districts, and she's really outreaching to school districts throughout the country. So, maybe 5 or 6 of my books or 10 of my books are bundled with other authors, but they're going into schools, and I think that's very important too.
Okay, I wanted to ask you a quick question because I know you got to get your hair did, but one thing I've seen versus today versus yesteryear, I do think that the children now have been fast-tracked to growing up a little too fast, because when I was growing up, we had cartoons, we had toys, and now we got the internet, and I do think that there are certain things that I've been seeing that I don't like. First, I wasn't bothered by it, but now, me being 51, I see that I've matured and got older. It isn't because I'm an old man, it's just because I've got a little mature. Just like I was very disturbed by, I don't know if you know, it was this song called Spin That, where this lady is basically talking about, her name is Young Miami, and she's basically talking about being a scammer and So I just wanted to ask you, do you feel that we need to take more accountability and hold each other accountable for some of the stuff that we present to the youth?
Yeah, and I also think that parents need to beware, I would use those terms, beware of cartoons. Because a lot of times, even though, it's a cartoon, there's sometimes, I don't want to use, stereotypes. That's what I would say. So you can find racial stereotypes in a cartoon. When my kids were young, they always talk about me because I say, see, why did they make the villain so dark? Or why did they change the color? So I would they felt like they couldn't really enjoy the cartoon because I was so busy pointing out like little discrepancies, right? But I think every stage of life, and that means when they're really little and they're watching cartoons, that needs to be monitored too. Our news needs to be monitored. We need to become more writers. So when you see something on the news that you think is not right, you should write in. I think one of the things that we don't do enough is we don't take pen or use our computer to put in a complaint about something we don't like, even if it's something where it's some type of violence or whatever. If you want to write your city council members, you should do that so that your voice is heard. Even if they don't read what you wrote, they'll know that something came in. If you entitle it as a subject line that you have a complaint. So I think that we could do, as a people, we could do a better job of writing when we see things that are wrong. If you don't like the way the sidewalk is, keep sending letters until the city fixes the sidewalk. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
If we just kind of sit back and go, oh, this street is horrible, but we never write in to complain, and then when we see some other neighborhood got their streets repaved, Is it because they wrote in more frequently and we didn't? So, we have to like kind of consider those things.
Okay. All right. One last question. I don't know if you know, in college, it's a HBC, historical black college. I think it's, I can't remember, but they issued a dress code. They said no more.
Is it Hampton? Hampton, I just heard about this.
It started with a T.
Tuskegee?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So basically, they said no more bonnets, no more
I
cell
heard about
phones.
that, and I thought it was great.
Okay, good. Speak on that, please.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting that you brought that up because there's a new black-owned comedy club, in Sassoon, California. Shout out to Federo. I went there. It's very nice, really upscale. They have a huge TV screen that's probably like 50 by 40 in size. No bonnets, no pajamas, no scantily dressed clothing. That whole list of all the no's that they don't allow are similar to what this college has just done. Honestly, when I first heard about it, I was surprised that they would have to come up with rules like that for people who were in college. So that's just, when I was in school, of course of all, we wouldn't even think about coming to class with some PJs on or a bonnet on our heads. I think the airlines and various other institutions should also do that, because I think teachers honestly should dress a little better, because when teachers set a standard, that gives a model for the students. And right now, a lot of students don't have a model because, teachers sometimes come to school not dressed as they should.
I understand completely, and that's what bothers me, because I think sometimes the teachers are starting to fall into the mode of like trying to be cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem. But I also partially blame the state, because I was substitute teaching for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I can recall a few times where I sent a child to the office, like, you're disrupting the class, you need to go to the office. And then the child comes right back, and I'm like, why are you back? I sent you to the office. And then I call the office and say, hey, I sent this student there because they were being disruptive. Why are they back? And I was told there's a state law and that they can't keep the child out of the classroom unless they've done something really egregious. And that's subjective, right? Because in my mind, it was enough to warrant me to send the child out of the classroom, right? Mm-hmm. So why would you send that child right back? And then that means that all the other students suffer, because that teacher has to focus on that one disruptive student, where, in my view, the principal or the vice principal or somebody could come up with ways of not making the child miss out on their education, but understand that there's a consequence for their actions. And I think what's happening is, with some of these new laws at the state level, that maybe those consequences aren't being implemented. And this probably depends on what school it is. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it too. And it depends on the teacher. Some teachers probably just like, okay, just let the kid disrupt the class, where others may be like, I really want my students to learn. So I think there's so many different variables, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what the problem is, but I found that to be a little disheartening, that I could send a student to the office and then they come back in less than 5 minutes. And then I said, well, why are you back? Oh, they just told me to do better. Really? So I think that there's a lot of work that can be done in that area.
Yeah, I understand. Well, Ramona, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and come on my platform. So I want to tell everybody to follow this woman, go buy her books. This lady is very intelligent, and we need people like her. We need more people like her out there. So, Ramona, tell everybody how to get in contact with you and plug all your social media sites.
I wish I knew all the social media. So I have Ramona's Children's Books. I have a YouTube channel called It's Lit Literacy. I think it's Lit Literacy by Romona Thomas. So I'm starting to try to post more on there too. I have my Instagram account, which was Ramona_books. Ramona's underscore books, but it may have changed to It's Literacy. But I do want to say that on August the 8th, I'm having a book launch to launch the new Eliana series, and that's going to be at 1928 Garden Meadow Avenue in Fairfield, and it's for families. The children can come out with the parents, and we're going to have games and make it a really fun event. And on one other note, with Kindle Serves Up History, which is a realistic historical fiction book, I've also written a teacher's guide. So there's a lesson plan per chapter. It's a 14-chapter book, and I've written a lesson plan for each chapter in the book to make it easy for teachers to teach this historical fiction, which is really, I use food again, but it's about a boy who is the only one in his classroom who cannot name the origin of his cultural food. So all of the other students, like Kumar, could point to India, or Maria could point to the Philippines, or I have other students, Fola could point to Nigeria as the origin of his cultural food, but the one Black American kid could not. And when you read that story, it's about family unity. It's about him finding his village and how his village came to help him and let him understand why it was so complicated for him to know the answer to the teacher's pop question. It was like a pop quiz, and unfortunately for him, being a very smart young man, could not answer what was supposed to be a real simple, easy question. And even today, when I ask people, can they name the origin of many of the foods that we eat, they cannot. So this is about American history that is not taught typically in the classroom.
What do you think we could do as a community to better or further educate ourselves and pass the knowledge on?
That is a very good question. You know what's really interesting? I think there are some organizations that do a really good job with that. Like for instance, I know when I was very young, the Black Panthers were having hot meals and teaching people about languages that were in Africa and things like that. I'm thinking of the things that they did for the community. There might be some groups out there right now that do similar things. I know when my son was coming up, we had him involved with the NAACP so that he could speak publicly and things like that. But I think it starts in the home, basically. Here's what I think. I think a lot of times people shy away from talking about the truth of what happens in our country. So that's the main thing. As long as you're always speaking the truth and not shying away from it, then I think that will make your family more well-rounded.
All right. Thank you very much, Ramona. You are always welcome here. You know how to contact me if you have something coming up.
I'd love for you to come to the launch if you could. It's on a Saturday, and it's August 8th.
I think I can. I think I don't have nothing
it's a
coming up.
4-hour window, so even if you came for an hour, that would be great. I would love for you to come.
All right. Thank you very much, Ramona. Once again, you are always welcome here. Whenever you want to come on here, you are more than welcome. You have a spot. You have anywhere. You have, once again, you have a spot where you can, basically reach out to people and basically let people know what's going on with you, because that's what I do. I'm here for us. I'm here for our people. That's why I'm here, because I feel like we need to bring out more alertness, and we need to let people know about our event stuff that's really for us, because I feel education is more needed than ever. And like I said, it's just time to put the work in.
And I also am going to be one of the speakers for the Solano County Library Foundation's fundraiser. I served on the board for a couple years. We raised money for literacy throughout the county, and we have authors come who are speaking on different genres. I will be a speaker the first weekend in November, and I want to invite you there for that event as well.